How to create a fully functional escape the maze game using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Let's create index.html, styles.css and script.js files. Now let's move on to implementing the structure in the HTML file. Specify the title of the web page, include a link to the external CSS file. Within the body, create a div element with the ID timer. Create a div element with the ID maze container. This will hold the maze and the player elements. Within the maze container, create a div element with the ID maze. Within the maze container, create another div element with the ID player. Create a div element with the ID controls. This will contain the buttons for moving the player. Within the controls section, create 4 button elements with the class control button and IDs up, left, right and down. Each button has a non-click attribute that calls the move player function. Create a div element with the ID message. Within the message section, create an h2 element with the ID message text. Within the message section, create a button element with the ID try again. This button has a non-click attribute that calls the initGame function. At the end of the body, include a script tag to link to the external JavaScript file. Now let's move on to writing styles. Set the display to flex and use the column direction to stack elements vertically. Center the content horizontally. Apply a linear gradient background. Set the font family. Use overflow hidden to prevent scroll bars from appearing. Position the maze container relatively to allow for absolute positioning of child elements. Add a margin around the container. Use border radius to round the corners. Apply an animation called float to create a floating effect. Create a keyframes rule named float to animate the maze container. The animation will move the container up and down slightly to simulate a floating effect. Set the position of each cell to relative. Apply a semi-transparent white background and the transition effect for a smooth background changes. For the exit cell, apply a linear gradient background with a reddish hue. Create a keyframes rule named exit glow to animate the exit cell. Set the background color of the walls to a dark gray. Position the walls absolutely within their parent cells. Position the player absolutely within the maze. Apply a radial gradient background with a green hue. Use the transition effect for smooth property changes. Add the box shadow for a subtle glow effect. And an animation called the pulse to create a pulsating effect. Create a keyframes rule named pulse to animate the player. Use a grid layout to arrange the control buttons. Define grid areas for each button and set a gap between the buttons. Set the width and height for each control button to 60 pixels. Apply a linear gradient background with a dark gray hue and set the text color to white. Add a box shadow for a subtle elevation effect and a transition effect for a smooth property changes. Scale the button down slightly when it's clicked. Position the message section fixed in the center of the viewport. Add padding around the corners and center the text. Apply an animation called message appear to fade in the message section. Create a keyframes role named message appear to animate the message section. Apply a linear gradient background with a green hue to the Try Again button. Add padding around the corners and set the cursor to a pointer. Add a margin at the top and a transition effect for smooth property changes. Scale the button up. Add a box shadow for a more pronounced glow effect when hovered over. Set the font size of the timer and add a margin around it. Add padding around the corners and apply a semi-transparent black background with a green border. Set the background color of the exit cell. Use a grid layout to arrange the cells within the maze. Create a class called hover effect to apply styles when a cell is hovered over. Use important to ensure these styles override any other styles. Now let's move on to implementing the logic. Set the size of each cell in the maze. Set the size of the maze grid. Initialize the player's starting position at the top left corner. Set the initial time left. Create a variable to hold the maze structure. Create a variable to hold the position of the exit. Now create a function to generate the maze using a depth-first search algorithm. Initialize the maze as a 2D array of cells, each with the walls on all sides and marked as unvisited. Use a stack to keep track of the path and the current cell to traverse the maze. Mark the starting cell as visited. While there are unvisited cells, check the neighbors of the current cell. If a neighbor is unvisited, randomly select a direction, remove the walls between the current cell and the neighbor, mark the neighbor as visited, and move to the neighbor. If no unvisited neighbors are found, backtrack using the stack. Generate a random exit position on one of the maze's edges to remove the corresponding wall. Now create a function to render the maze of the web page. Select the maze container and set its grid template column based on the maze size and cell size. Clear any existing content in the maze container. Loop through each cell in the maze and create a div element for each cell. Set the cells class to cell and add the exit class if the cell is the text. For each wall in the cell, create a div element with the class wall and the corresponding direction class. Append the wall to the cell. Append each cell to the maze container. Call update player position to position the player in the maze. Now create a function to update the player's position on the web page. Select the player element and set its width and height based on the cell size. Set the player's position based on its coordinates in the maze. Check if the player has reached the exit position and show a win message if true. Now create a function to move the player in the specified direction. Check if the game is active. If not, return. Get the walls of the current cell. Update the player's position based on the direction if there is no wall in that direction. Call update player position to update the player's position on the web page. After that, create a function to display a message to the player. Set game active to false to stop the game. Clear the time interval. Set the message text and display the message section. Now create a function to initialize the game. Set game active to true to start the game. Reset the time left to 30 seconds and update the timer display. Hide the message section. Reset the player's position to the starting point. Generate and render the maze. add an event listener for key down and key up events to handle player movement using the arrow keys. On key down, move the player in the corresponding direction and add a hover effect to the corresponding button. On key up, remove the hover effect from the corresponding button. Call initGame to start the game when the script is loaded. Now let's solve the problems. As a result, we created a fully functional game, Escape from the Maze, using HTML, CSS and JavaScript.